Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sense of Things, and Jeff and Ron here. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Today, we're going to have a show really focused around, we're coming up to the inauguration next week. There's a lot of anticipation for what's going to happen. The market certainly had been anticipating this after the election and kind of went sideways after that, even a little bit down. So what's going to happen? Well, who knows? But we're going to talk about some of the things that potentially could happen or some of the things that could affect the markets as we come into it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in a second. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Ron, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Hey, do you know what season it is?
Freaking
It's
cold
earnings season.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's freaking cold season here in Texas, but earnings season too. Yeah, that too.
Yeah. I hear you. Yep. And then we got the inauguration next week. So yeah, get your popcorn out.
Yep. Yeah. It's been amazing how frantic this administration has been kind of getting things done right before the new administration's coming in. So it's interesting to see that the FDA finally, after only 50 years, realized that red dye number 2 or whatever it is.
Red dye number 3. I was reading that yesterday.
Yeah. Yes. And finally, after 50 years, they decided to ban it, but still not until like 2029, which I'm like, well, we can kill a few more people off before we get to that point. But
I think that was almost as much of a shocker as when Taco Bell was announced 10 years ago that only 40% of their meat was actually meat.
Nice. Good.
So other than soybeans, I really don't want to know how the rest of it was made.
Yeah, I don't really need to know how the sausage is made.
No.
All right. Well, let's kick this puppy off by talking a little bit about what some market moving events could be going into the inauguration of next week. So we're filming this on Thursday before the inauguration. What do we know so far that's going to happen? Well, this happens every time a new president comes in. Executive orders. Now, we don't know specifically what those are going to be, and we do know there's like 150 of them that are going to happen here on day one. This has been, I don't know for you, Ron, this is kind of a bone of contention for me because I really hate when the executive branch decides to, do their thing and just basically do an end around to the Congress and everything else.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, one of my favorite things, and then I'll let you keep going here, is no matter who's president, when they do executive orders, you always hear the other side, well, that's illegal. He or she can't do that, right? And I'm thinking to myself, well, if it was illegal, then take action.
Yeah, take action against it, but all of you
say those actions are illegal, but nothing ever happens.
That's exactly right. And here's the chart that shows this. You've got on the, Eisenhower, who everybody looks at as, oh, well, Eisenhower was this, good general and didn't do a whole lot. Yeah, he was the highest in history first year. Now, the odds are this one actually could be pretty big this year. If what they're saying is true, I mean, we could see this one be off the charts this year. So once again, not a big fan of these. Sometimes they do them and then Congress starts to do their part and then they pull these executive orders off. That's why, because I mean, Biden was one of the highest in history and they're only showing 75, but a lot of that was because the Congress came in and made changes that were part of those executive orders. So I think
here's the one thing that stands out to me is Ford.
Yeah.
Ford's only in office 2.5 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is 12 months or during the calendar year because he didn't take over as president until August of 74.
Well, and
I put in the last 5 months of the year or over 12 months.
From my understanding, this is only through the end of the first fiscal year. So that's in October.
So he couldn't have done all that in 2 months.
I don't know. I mean, it was shocking to me because I'm like, Jerry Ford, I don't remember him doing anything. I mean, I was young, but I don't remember him doing anything. But apparently he was writing some executive orders fast when he came in. I
wonder if a lot of that had to do with, and not to go down this road, that was right towards the tail end of the Vietnam War, the last few months. I wonder if some of that
trying to just get, okay, let's get all this stuff
yeah,
out of the,
I don't
clear
know.
out
All
some
right,
of this
well,
stuff.
maybe we will research that.
Good news, hopefully, an end or at least a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. It's interesting that, of course, everybody who's not Israel and Hamas was out there going, oh, it's all agreed and everything's perfect and all that. And Bibi Netanyahu this morning was saying, whoa, hold on, not so fast here on this stuff. And I think it's going to be an interesting thing because of course people want to have the hostages come home. Everybody wants that, and nobody wants to see people just getting bombed out of their homes and all that. But there has to be an agreement, and it always seems a little one-sided in some cases with some of these
Well,
things.
I usually would not do this, but I'm going to do it now. I'm going to give a strong opinion. Number one, you can't trust Hamas.
No.
They never live up to it. This happened twice before, and this is a temporary ceasefire. That's
Yeah.
number one. Number two, Hamas is actually winning this whole thing because they wanted to put Israel and the United States in a bad light, and they've
Mhm.
done that for the last 15 months. That's number
Yep.
two. Number three, one of their end goals was they wanted their soldiers back that were
Mhm.
taken as prisoner by Israeli. So
Yep.
they're doing basically a hostage for prisoner swap. So in a
Yeah.
way, Hamas won this, and
Yeah.
it's disgusting for me to say that, but essentially, we'll see what happens because it's only a 6 weeks ceasefire, and I
Yeah.
and I feel very confident that no matter what it is, they're going to look to eliminate them no matter what. So we'll have to
Mhm.
see what happens.
Yeah, and as far as the hostage, I mean, last I heard there was 100 and some odd hostages. Now they're saying there may only be 40 of them alive. So nobody really even knows. And there's
Yeah.
little factions within Gaza that are holding people, so it's not just
What kind of
one
condition are they
organized.
in?
Yeah, it's not one organized Hamas. There's got like little factions of them all over the place. So you really, I don't think we know how many people they're going to get back, and it's going to be an interesting thing. I don't think this is over by any way, shape, or form. It is a weakened Hamas and a weakened Hezbollah and a weakened Israel or Iran. So, we might not see the all out and out fighting that we had been seeing, but I don't think we're through the end of it. But
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, real quick to interrupt you. This has been going on thousands of years. You think
yeah,
this is going to finally cease in our generation? Not going to
no,
happen.
no, Ukraine and Russia negotiations. So the other war that's threatening the world, I think there's going to be more negotiations there. I don't think it's going to be what ends up happening. I don't think either side is going to like out of this, but there's got to be some kind of solution there because there's really been, it's almost like since the Israel Hamas things took over, then it was like, oh, just everybody forget about Ukraine, Russia. And, I mean, it's got to stop at some point. So hopefully we'll see some kind of, a negotiation and at least a cessation of fighting, which means that hopefully we don't have to pour billions and billions and billions of dollars into that
Well,
conflict.
I hate to say it, it's going to happen
Yeah.
because with Gaza
Yep.
and with Ukraine, who's going to help subsidize and pay for the rebuild?
Yeah. Yeah.
We
That's
are.
absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you think
In
of all these.
Germany, we did in Japan.
Yep. It'll be us again, and
I think we helped do that in Vietnam too.
yeah, well, I mean, we've done it in every conflict we've been involved with. We went back in and rebuilt afterwards. So, yep, it's going to be us that are going to be paying for it. But hopefully, if we can at least get a ceasefire between the two so that, at least we're not pouring billions into, maybe if we pour some money in there, it'll help their economy and maybe we can make some money out of it. But yeah, we're going to be pouring a ton of money in there to help out. Unleashing oil and gas, as we discussed on our previous show, yes, I think it's going to be good from the perspective of the, the throughput to the economy, lowering gas prices, lowering energy costs, everything from fertilizer to diesel fuel to everything else, I think is a playthrough. But if you watched our previous show, the challenge with that is if you're investing in oil stocks, you're probably going to not be real happy with that.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that, Ron?
We have to be able to be somewhat energy independent.
Yeah.
Two of the most important commodities, right?
Yeah.
And in the end, I just can't believe with everything that we've been through in the last 200 years that we're actually kind of, we don't have more peace in the world. But that's what power and greed always takes over.
Yep.
And this all blends into, our energy thing. And I know that, the GOP is not a big fan of wind and solar, but I think that has to be a part of the equation.
Well, I think it has to be a part of the equation in all sector, in all areas. We need to be, and I don't think the GOP is against it. It's just, you can't have that be the complete, there's the environmental lobby that will tell you, oh, well, we just need wind and solar. Well, okay, I can't have a windmill on top of my car. The reality is, yes, we will have electric cars. I drove a Tesla when I was on vacation. It's a cool car.
Yeah.
But the whole time I sat there going, okay, when's the battery going to run out? I don't want that. And if I'm going across country, I sure as crap don't want that where I have to sit someplace for.
There's a lot of charging stations.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of charging stations, but even the fast ones, it's still going to be 45 minutes for me to top it off. I don't want that on a long trip. So, until we figure this out, and I'm a huge believer in hybrids. I think hybrids.
I like the hybrids,
make a heck of a lot of sense because it takes that argument out of the picture completely. So yes, I think oil and gas, unleashing it is good in some aspect. From an investment standpoint, I don't think it's a good choice. And you and I both agree. We've never been fans of it anyhow, as far as portfolio asset.
No.
Persistent interest rates. I think the belief is, oh, well, the Fed's going to come in and they're going to lower interest rates. But the problem is the Fed doesn't set the 10-year interest rates. That's the market itself. And the market itself is telling you, we're not through this yet. And I always said the bond guys are usually the smartest guy in the room. They're the most boring guy in the room, but they're also the smartest guy in the room. And they tend to be pretty well right on this. And you're seeing, although they've pulled back a little bit over the last couple of days, they're still persistently up there in the 4.6, 4.7 range.
Well, look, I thought it was comical. I was having a conversation with somebody a few weeks ago that thought he knew what he was talking about. The whole thing we were saying for the last 2 years, higher for longer, higher for longer.
Yes.
Well, and he came to me and says, what happened for higher for longer? I'm like, 4.5 is still high.
Yeah.
I said, not only that, but mortgage rates are back over 7% for 30-year. I said, we're not out of the woods yet, and higher for longer. And now they were saying that the futures are only talking 1, maybe 2 interest rate cuts this year.
Yeah.
We all know how those forecasts actually work out.
Well, and I would largely say those are going to be at best on the backside of the year.
Yeah.
Because the Fed's going to wait and see. They want to see what happens, with all the, they want to see what happens with the new administration and what changes are, and they are data dependent. So I listen to Chairman Powell and I believe what he says. You know what? We're going to take a wait and see attitude until we can get a handle on what, is happening in the economy with the new administration.
Well, not only that, but Powell's only got 1 more year in his term. And after that, who knows what's going to really.
Who's coming in? And I think there's a couple Fed governors that are up for renewal too. So, it could change completely different over the next.
Potentially for the bad if they try and heat it up too much.
Yeah. Tariffs, so this, I typically see as a bad thing from the tariff perspective. However, our incoming president has been shown that he's a pretty damn good negotiator. And I think in a lot of cases, it's punch him in the face and pat him on the back afterwards. I do not in any way, shape, or form think that we're going to plow a ton of tariffs on Canada and Mexico. I think that's a negotiating tactic. I think it's highly likely that we'll plow some tariffs onto China at this point, and yes, that might raise prices, but it might be offset by energy costs and everything else. So, there's just a lot there's a lot of moving parts, and to just say tariffs are bad, I'm sorry.
Well,
It's
actually, the reality is tariffs overall are bad
yeah,
if they are followed through and
yeah,
executed. That's the difference. The threat of it, the realistic threat, is just good for media fodder. That's about
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I think it's a negotiating tactic, and all presidents have used that, as a way, as a means of getting the other side to the table to make some agreements, and I think we're going to see a lot of this, and I think there's going to be a lot of threats of, we'll do it, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Trump slap on some and keep people's feet to the fire to get them to do stuff. Because I mean, they had negotiated a ton of things with China in the previous administration, and then none of that was ever followed through. China never did anything that they were supposed to have done in those negotiations. So, you know what? You hold their feet to the fire right now. I think we're in a stronger position than even China is at this point.
Yeah, I'll say.
All right. Well, that's all I had today. I think it's going to be an interesting, at least next month, it's going to be a really interesting thing. And we'll be here to cover that and share with folks. But make sure that you guys are keeping up with us. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And we'd love some comments on this. Wherever you're at, drop a comment in. We'll make sure that we get back to you with it and maybe put a future show about this coming down the road. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you guys back here the very next time.